Get the Intel, the podcast meant for those of us trying to find out what the hell is going on in the field. Here we discuss tools, techniques, and approaches that you can implement to streamline operations and let you focus on your craft.
Hello, Chad Gill here. I'm the host of the Get the Intel podcast, where I talk with leaders in contracting management and anyone helping us do business better. This episode is brought to you by Lybrand Coaching. We not only help with proposing solutions and methods, but we implement them in your business as well. After all, good ideas are not useful until they're implemented. So if you're ready to elevate your business, visit us at lybrandcoach.com for a full range of services. We're also sponsored by Global Polishing Solutions. GPS is an industrial, commercial, concrete polishing, floor coating, and covering company with an ISNet membership. GPS is capable of handling intricate projects from warehouses and data centers to retail and commercial spaces. We firmly believe in prioritizing safety, quality, and client contentment while providing durable floor systems. So explore our range of services at globalpolishingsolutions.com. So joining me today is Dr. Ray Lybrand Jr., and I apologize if I got the last name wrong, who has been helping entrepreneurs and leaders master complex problem solving by simplifying structural dynamics in systems for over 20 years. As a book author, consultant, and coach, he uses his expertise in communication, creative problem solving, and leadership development to empower his clients to enjoy their problems and achieve their goals. His newest book is Enjoying Problems, a book of Enjoying Problems, a book that empowers entrepreneurs with a better method for better solutions. Red, I appreciate you taking the time, and I thank you for it. We already had a great conversation, so hopefully we can just keep it going. But
Sure.
A lot of people are looking forward to enjoying their problems.
Well, it's strange. I'm noticing just people reading the title is starting to affect people because they've never had that thought. But if you think about it properly and you understand the nature of problems, I mean, look, I'll tell you here, if we go off the air in another minute, this is going to be worth the price of admission. So the reason anybody gets hired, let's just stay with hiring, is to solve problems. That's why you're hired. Yep. And if you'll solve the problems you're hired for, then you'll be able to keep your job. If you'll solve more problems than you're hired for, they'll give you more money and more position. And if you create more problems than you're hired for, they'll fire you. That's kind of the game. And so what we found is if we can train people and help them really see this as a skill you can learn and improve and get good at, there's a kind of joy of saying, yeah, bring it, because solving this problem advances the game. I mean, look, solve one problem and it's a better world, just the way systems are. So all I want with the remainder part of my life here is I'd like to see less problems and more solvers. That's kind of what I'm aiming for.
It's a good way to, it's a good goal. Seems like problems are coming in waves, but I think, I agree with you in that, processes and trying to find, everybody wants to talk about the root cause of the problem, trying to find, you solve one problem today that solves 30 problems or many more problems down the road. So you spend the time on the one because it's going to, preclude you from making others. It's, what is insanity is making the same mistake again and again, expecting different results. So how do you guide people into doing that? Like, what is the approach there that's different than what most people are considering?
Yeah. So one of the things we start with is what I'll do is I get people. So I have two versions of it. I have one called the full Monty, which is like 14 questions. And then the other is called business casual. And it's 4 strategic questions. But it's what I would call the simple 6 model. So there are like 6 moves in this game. But where I start before I mention what, these things are, is to understand what the nature of a problem is. Everybody knows how you define the problem is where the key is. And people are terrible at defining problems. I'll ask them to define it, and then we'll write that down. And then I'll take them through a little process. And by the time we get through, they realize the problem isn't the problem. And here's why. There are no problems on the planet of any kind, anywhere, ever, until somebody wants something. That's actually the game, So if Clemson loses and the other team wins, problem for Clemson, not a problem for the other team, because they want different things.
One
right?
got one and one did not.
Yeah, that's how it goes. So getting people to a place of understanding, what do you want, really begins to make the difference. So I remember I was working with an engineer that was assigned overseas in the UK, kind of reported to the president, kind of a stealth consultant type guy in this large company, and they had a problem with a stuck pig under the North Sea. So in oil and gas, a pig is like a plastic, polyurethane, whatever, marshmallow, and they run it through the pipes with solvents to clear the paraffin, the wax that collects on the sides. Otherwise, it'll clog. Well, they had a stuck pig, blah, blah, blah. And they're wrestling with this stuck pig. And I finally get, through the problems of the pig. And I said, well, what do you really want? And we worked on that a little bit. And he said, I want 100% flow. 100% flow, like constant flow. Right. And then we moved from there. The way I like to do it is to focus on generating a goal that, if we accomplish it, takes care of everything else. So what we're looking for is not what I call problem soothing, Chad. So problem soothing is you have a problem, it creates pain, the pain makes you take action, the action reduces the pain, reduces the action, problem continues, like the baggage at Southwest, And so that's about what people do. And so it's a symptomatic type game. So when he and I started thinking this through, he said, well, what it would take is a really good team. And so we got in motion, rethinking that whole process. So from bottom to top, we said, new objective, what we're aiming for is 100% flow. Got a new person in to oversee the team, reconfigure some things. That we had the Italians and the Brits, and I don't know who else in, bureaucracies and rules and all kinds of stuff. And so we kind of firewalled things and got a new team going. And within months, they had great flow, and they sold this stuff for $1.5 billion or something like that. Wow. So that's kind of the game, that most of what everybody's going through is they're thinking, the problem, like I'll do a dinky thing, like in parenting, the problem is the brother keeps picking on the sister. Let's just pick that one. And that's the problem. And so you start asking a question like, why are you doing that? Or a directive like, won't you leave her alone? And leave her alone could be, he could be gone. He could be at the neighbor's house. He could be, sedated or hooked on games alone. I don't know. But an orientation that says, wait, I want these two to cooperate, to get along. Well, that want sets up a different game. How do we set that up so these two cooperate? And the idea is they're going to team up rather than be at odds, right? And just that kind of tweak in our orientation, the way it works, begins to transform what we're looking at and what we can see in terms of solving it.
Yeah, because like I said, it's a lot easier to find a goal than to. I would think people are more receptive to trying to identify a goal than they are to assigning blame. And a lot of times, problem solving seems to be a blame game. And so when you're thinking to get there,
yeah, and you can get everybody to, cooperate around a goal. When you get into what's the problem? Well, it's this, and it's this, and it's this. And what you just said is right on, which is part of what we're doing with trying to figure out this thing is setting it up. So CYA, what do I blame? It's that. And there's a better way to go. And so part of what I want to do is I'm working on is a universal model, that we can apply everywhere. And so my model basically goes like this, it's the first thing you're doing is you're seeking, figuring out what you want. So it's a seek stage. And then there's a see stage where you're just observing what's going on, figuring out the pieces. Then there's a sort stage. So you get the pieces and the elements all out there together. Then there's a simplify stage, and simplifying is when you figure out the logic of how these things bump into each other to produce the result or problem. And so when you see that sequence, that simplicity, it's just some major moves in there, some pieces. That sets you up, then you can solve it. And you want to solve it by asking a question like, I'd ask, what goal, if we reached it, would solve this forever? I like forever goals. Part of my background was in, I have a doctorate in applied theology. And so I wanted like to solve my eternal destiny issue forever. So I like to be sure it's going to work out forever. I like that with all problems. You know, if we can think about how do I solve this forever, it puts us into a different frame to really look at a solution that we may not have considered, instead of a little thing that gets us through the week. You know, it's like, how do I pay for, how do I meet payroll? You know, that's symptomatic. That's that Southwest thing.
Yeah.
Like, or how do I take care of payroll forever? I've done things with bonuses where I had executives spending like weeks driving themselves crazy figuring out all these bonuses. And I just said, let's just make it mechanical. And I showed him how a way to set up a mechanical system that just, it was math, and it was a long-term solution. And he had a little extra there if he wanted to throw somebody something that had done something outstanding, great. But everybody got the game. They understood it. Nobody's mad. And it's just running through the spreadsheet. This is the way we do this game. So looking for a way, how can I solve this so I never have to touch it again? Really sets you in motion to look for a different kind of answer, because what you're doing is you're going to create this thing up here, and the problem or problems are nested inside of that solution. So it's not treating that symptom, it's actually creating something fresh and awesome. The last step, I left it out, after you solve, is simulate. And these kind of overlap a little bit, but you're wanting to, you know, run it out and see, does that make sense? Will that work? You know, at least that limited simulation helps a lot, because you're thinking, okay, let's just play in our mind. We do this, this happens, this happened. What's the game? And really, most problems, when you think them through that way, you'll either catch some unintended consequences that you might want to avoid, or you'll get pretty excited about it because you suddenly are, you know, making sense of the path too.
Yeah, it's do you find that you get simpler solutions when you're working that direction?
Well, yeah, you know, most things are, I think it was Einstein that said, you want things to be as simple, but not simpler than they need to be, something like that. And I think that's right. You know, Steve Jobs liked to quote Da Vinci with saying, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? So most of what we're doing, and some of the training that I do, they're like these 14 micro skills that go into it. This is the frame. They're little skills, and one of them is learning how to look at the overall pattern of it. So if you can understand how it works, you know, I was sitting there working with a plumber client one time, and the overall pattern is, you go into a house, you find out what the problem is, you fix it, you show that it's fixed, they pay you, and you leave, right? Now, if you goof that up, you can get callbacks. If you're really smart, you'll say, as long as we're here, anything else you want us to look at? But the funniest thing, when we worked out, there's like 18 steps now on a laminated sheet that they go through. And these 18 steps are high, this. Well, when we put it out there and looking at the overall simplicity of the sequence, they had it, they fix it, and then they show the customer, and then they clean up, and then they give them the bill. And I'm sitting there going, why don't you clean up before you show the customer? Like, fix it, clean up, show them it's fixed, and then give them the bill. And they both went, that is such a great idea. Well, you know, I'm just looking at all the pieces. Like, I'm looking at both the plumber and the customer, and how do we have these people work together and they're happy about it, you know? And so what does it mean for a plumber to have done a good job? What does it mean for a customer to be satisfied? And it's really that level of simplicity. If you look at it that way, instead of all the, crazy nuance. My engineering friends, I had to invent a word to explain clients. I had to explain what their problem is. So I tell engineers, I said, here's your problem. You guys tend to over complexificate things.
we do.
Yeah. So now I work with a lot of them, and they, I have firms that use that phrase, don't over complexificate,
That's it. I have a sweatshirt my wife got for me that said, engineers solving problems you don't know you had in ways you can't understand.
Exactly. That's perfect.
They're a different crowd.
Yes, they are. And I like them. They make things work, but goodness, just talking to them is tough enough. I taught communication at the University of Alabama, and engineers, this was about the only class they were required to take outside of engineering, in the humanities, communication. And I have a friend of mine who's a engineer, and we work with on a board. And I used to say to him, he would write these 3-page letters and send them out to the board, and I had half the board that just hit delete. They wouldn't even read it. It's just so much information. And I'd look at him and I said, look, here, James, here's all I want you to do. Pretend you're about to die and tell me the 3 things I need to know about this before you go. And when I do that, it was just clear as a bell, very strategic, just on target. And that's a lot of what this simplicity thing goes. Like, what's really going on here? Not all this nuance, crazy stuff, but what are just the basic pieces that are bumping into each other? Because it's probably not as complicated as you think. In fact, let's think about it. E equals MC squared. Okay, there's a lot of complexity to that, but that's pretty simple. Energy equals mass times squared, right? Golly. So that's that's pretty transformative, So that's part of the game. This simplify aspect is a skill. You have to learn to be able to back up and quit looking so far back it's like world peace, or in obsessive detail, so you're counting the folds on the wing of the beetle you're looking at. I'm not saying those don't have their place, but when you're really getting into being effective at solving problems or leading or most of these things, you want to look at the overall thing. In the math of corporations and companies, honestly, if you can get 3 things that you measure that you really look at, it can tell you dramatic things. All the detail and all overwhelms a lot of people, but if you just know a gross profit margin, an overhead margin, and a net profit margin, and you just look at them, it'll tell you all kinds of things that are going on, and you get used to it, and then you know where to look to cut, improve, spend, whatever.
Yeah, we work really hard with people, clients, to work on metrics, and like, just give me 1 to 3 numbers, something
exactly
into the week. An employee can look at it and say, I had a good week or a bad week, and I know because.
Exactly.
And it doesn't, and they're like, well, we're going to talk about people and culture and happiness. I'm like, you can roll all of that up into 3 numbers. I'm not saying it's be easy, but once you have it, people will self-filter. They'll say, this is the place for me, or it's not the place for me. And that's what we find is there's typically, and that's what I was going to ask you, when you're doing these problem seminars and stuff like that, is there like a watershed moment, like where, or what would it be where somebody, like they're kind of, you see it a lot of times, they're resistant, and then all of a sudden something clicks, and then from now on the program will go. Do you run into much of that?
I do. Usually it's a point of leverage. So when you find, part of what I like to do is I look at all the dials, and I'm just looking for like the one thing, the small thing I can turn that kind of moves everything. Because my superpower, honestly, I have 2. I can read, which comes in very handy nowadays. Not much
tricky coming from Alabama. I understand that.
Yeah, and not much competition. Absolutely. So that's one of them. The other is I'm lazy. So being lazy, I don't like to do. Why do with 1 step something you can do in a half a step?
Right.
So I'm constantly thinking, how do I move things out, or how do I get things in motion? What is it that would take care of that? And so, it might be, I remember I was doing a thing for State Farm, and I remember somebody describing the complexity of the week. And literally all we got it down to was, if you had a meeting with your folks and had very clear how many, let's say, phone calls they need to make each that week, and then we're going to check on Friday, that's all we're going to do. They did, it revolutionized what they're doing, because they had it so complicated and getting around, what are we trying to do and all the rest. But I went through a process and got down. I coached, I was interacting, I taught high school at one point. The girls volleyball team was not doing so hot, and I said, I'll be glad to help. Y'all are interested. And so the ladies coach called. They'd not won a game all year as a young school. And I sat there and I said, I don't understand volleyball. And so they explained it to me, and I got it down to the pieces. And I got it down to this. I said, so the problem is, y'all aren't all set. As soon as, if you're all set, you're ready to play the point, you'll probably win what you've described to me, because you got to be in the game, be set, and then you do this stuff. And I said, so y'all ought to create a phrase like ready, set, or something. And they did, and they won, but it's just a leverage point, and so a lot of what, I look for and try to look for is, I'm not trying to see everything, but I'm trying to find that thing that if I do this, I can pretty well predict it's going to set the rest of the game in motion. And usually when people see that, they go, I get it. It can't be that simple.
Yeah, and then it builds momentum, I think.
Yeah. Well, and then it works. And then you build confidence. The greater part of courage is having done it before, Emerson. So you got that going for you. And most of these things, I tell you, you can measure when you found a good solution or a good leverage point, because what wants to come out of everybody's mouth is this word. I don't know if y'all use it up there in Virginia, but it's very common in Alabama and Texas. And it's the word duh. like duh. I had a roofer. I'll give you another example, just what you went on number. A roofer, a friend of mine, and we're talking, that I was working with, and he was telling me he can't keep up with his money. He said, I don't know where it is. There's so much stuff moving in and out. I don't know what I have available. And I said, you're going to go bankrupt. And then I said, look, you could, at the very worst, you could measure the last day of the month, every month. You go back for a year, and that will show you a pattern of what's going on in your account. At least, that was back when I didn't know stuff I'd learned since then, but you could at least do that. And he went bankrupt. So that's the way it goes.
Well, if he went bankrupt in the middle of the month, your advice is good. He just didn't make it to the end of the month.
Yeah. Well, I think he's gone bankrupt several times and gotten out of it. So it's like one of those guys.
I think I met a guy a few years ago. I'm 49 now. I think I was 44 when I met him, and I was, having a down month or something like that. And he goes, man, what are you worried about? You got time to go bankrupt 3 more times. And I was like, I've never been bankrupt. He goes, oh, well, then you don't know this.
Exactly. There you go. You don't even know what you're talking about.
He goes, you haven't had it bad yet. I was like, man, I had an experience I don't want. Maybe you could tell me about it and I don't have to do it,
Exactly.
But yeah, those are tough scars. Well, that's fantastic. Well, the book is called "Enjoying Your Problems." We'll certainly put a link to it in the podcast. And I really appreciated conversation. And this is just, it's fine. Seeing, can we get, like you said, without problems, you can't ever show what you can do. It's a lot of times there's a faith part of that one too. It's like, man, if you don't have any problems, you can't show your faith, and that's part of what this is too.
Well, so, and you're also step in to be the leader they're looking for. If you're in a room and they say we got a problem, and one of you says, "Oh boy, awesome! I ate him for breakfast. It's what I live for. This is what we're about, right? Let's bring it." That you already are in leadership because you're ready to take it on. And let me just tell you, they rarely go away just by ignoring them. They might, but if you can define what you really want, everything can change. And if you're a change agent, a leader, you better get good at solving problems. And if you think you are good, you probably need to do a metric on that and see if it's true. You might be, but my experience is it's a skill that really can get better with some work, just like skills do. Literally anything on the planet's about this way. you can just get better and better. And the better you get, and you put a few skills together, you don't have competition. You just get to show up and impact things.
Yeah. I mean, you can be born fast, but you can get faster.
Exactly.
I was not born fast. We're goalies and catchers.
I was not either. My junior year of high school, in the spring, I ran a 6.240. So I kind of waddled down the field. I was really good at deep snapping. And I decided to take it serious. And so I ran, I exercised, and I worked on speed. And by the end of the summer, when we showed up for 2-a-days or whatever and had our test, I was at 5.140 for a center. That was, and nobody's faster inside of 5 yards. Nobody could beat me on the first quickness inside of that. But I was 5'6", so I better be quick or I get hurt.
That's right. Hey, it helps. Speed helps. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to run and tell the police what happened.
Well, and also back in those days, my specialty was what's now called, I think, a chop block, and it wasn't illegal back then.
That's right.
And they couldn't see me, so I couldn't.
Well, at 5'6", you could chop block chest high.
Yeah, exactly. I could do a lot of that. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. Looks like I got a book I got to read now, so I better jump on that.
It is almost available probably the next couple of weeks, and it'll come with audio and some templates we use in it. It's going to be I think it's going to be a fun thing to generate some opportunity. My long-term goal is to have labs where people are in the program, and then we're getting together regularly with a lot of people, and I'm walking through the process with real goals in business and life, so everybody learns from each other. So, but that's with an eye towards training. I mean, I love problems. I can do it all day long, but it's really getting more solvers out there, so there are less problems.
That's I think that's a good mission, and I think problems. You're not talking about just business, family, health, all of them.
Well, half the book's about anxiety, because like test anxiety, you can know everything, but if you go in a test, you're anxious, you'll flunk. So entrepreneurs are really trapped, because if the problem was solved, they wouldn't be anxious. But if they're anxious, their creative juices can get fouled up, and they listen to too many voices. And so part of what I have to show you is you can erase your anxiety pretty quickly. Once you know how to run your emotions and your brain, and it's not that hard. It's just nobody teaches us. So it's that's a piece of it, as well as the whole process. So it's a 1-2 punch. This it'll transform your life.
It's always, everybody wants these. I don't know. One of the, I don't know who said it and where I heard it, but they're like, you got to hone in on skills, and you work on this and you learn these things. And the guy's like, everybody wants a microwave solution to a crock pot recipe. It's like, some things just take a little time. And
exactly. But everything's hard. I like to say it this way: everything's hard before it's easy, but it's easy once you know how.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. And it just takes a little investment. Right.
I tell it to all of my 11 grandchildren, that kind of stuff all the time, and they're frustrated. Sorry.
Hey man, this is part of the thing. You got problems. Once you learn how to talk, we're going to get you into my training, and exactly. Your mom won't listen to me, but maybe you will.
Yeah, somebody will. Suit yourself.
That's right. Fantastic. Well, we'll look for it. Probably by the time the podcast comes out, it'll be available. Hopefully you got some of your stories and
there's stuff, and you go to enjoyingproblems.com, and you there's stuff there and more stuff coming. So
fantastic.
Cool.
Well,
thanks, Chad.
I really appreciate it. We'll hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Cool.
Thanks for listening to Get the Intel. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.